Praise the Lord. Okay, well, I just want to take this first moment just to highlight his wife. I'm going to ask her to stand. Let's celebrate this vista. I was going to have you come up and preach together. Okay, we'll give her a few moments. And then his mom will be able to also, we'll recognize her too once she returns because she has an awesome testimony. Well, take your seat. Celebrate Mr. Guyton with his speaker. Cancer survivor. Amen. Take your seat. I just want to just ask a few questions this morning, but I first just want to say we're so super excited about what you're about to share. And just as before we get started, I also want to share just about the power of prayer, and I'm sure he'll share some of this himself. But I just want to say thank you to Whitney because she had really months ago had been just having Mr. Guyton on her heart and was praying. And when she first heard that he had cancer, she immediately called us. And we were thinking, oh my God, he was just with us shooting our daughter's graduation. And he's the one who always comes with the different disguises at High Impact. And the ladies are so excited because we get to put on all these different things and act like a nut vista. And so it was a moment where he couldn't come. And Whitney called and said, Pastor Dave, you won't believe Mr. Guyton has cancer. We were like, oh my gracious, da-da-da-da-da, we were praying. But Whitney actually called again to him directly. It was on her heart again. And prayed, her in jail, prayed with him, sang with him, just enjoyed him because there we met him through her. And we just really want to say thank you for her constant heart to stand in the gap. But they come from a full family, a line of ministers, pastors, preachers, and the Word of God is in their line. And so today I just want you to share what your condition is, what it was, and how you got through the process to where you are today.
Well, I had prostate cancer. I was diagnosed at 45 years old, which is extremely young for prostate cancer. Normally men who are middle-aged or slightly older. And when I got diagnosed, I was actually stage 3 at 45 years old. Meaning, when you're talking about cancer, you have stages. If the cancer develops in your breast or wherever, if it's localized or in the colon, if it's localized or if it doesn't go anywhere, that's stage 2. Now, if it goes outside of that area slightly, locally, that's stage 3. If it starts migrating through the body or to the bones, that's stage 4. So I had stage 3 where it had escaped the prostate, but it was local at 45 years old. And I had to do radiation, 28 treatments, and I had to do 2-year hormone therapy. Also, young men with prostate cancer, it feeds off testosterone. Testosterone is a fertilizer. So the younger you are, the more dangerous it is. And I believe it's the same thing with estrogen for breast cancer. It's like fertilizer. And let me say for a moment, I'm so glad to see the church educating people.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know how many people are ignorant to things about cancer and how, like the brother said, early detection is the key. You will I have an uncle who had prostate cancer 50 years ago. He's still alive today. I believe he's like 87, 88. But he stayed with the doctor, and he got it early. My father, who wasn't as fortunate, didn't take care of him like he was supposed to. And he passed away younger at 67. So that's why early detection is so important. But I went through those things, and then I was in remission for about 5 years. And then my PSA started rising. And the PSA means the cancerous activity in your blood. It started rising, and I got an intermittent therapy, which means when my PSA would rise to 20, or 30, I would get back on the hormones and knock it back down to 0. 0 means no activity. And that's where you want prostate cancer at 0, no activity. So I did good for about 4 years or so. And then about 2 years ago now, I think it is, I was at the oncologist and we did a bone scan. Yeah. And we didn't normally do bone scans for like every year and a half, every 2 years. And he says, you're showing spots on your bone scan. And I said, spots? What does that mean? He said, cancerous activity. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, cancerous activity. So I go home and I get on Dr. Google. Amen. You know, we all get on Dr. Google. And Dr. Google says the same thing. So I go back, like this doctor leaves, I get another doctor 4 or 5 months later. He says, wow, your bone scan is showing more spots. And I said, well, when does this metastasize? He says, that is metastasis. And I wanted to let you know that because I was ignorant at the time. Because I didn't ask more questions, I didn't get my paperwork. And then also that first time when we found 2 spots, he let me walk out the office with no medication. So when I came back, I had 2 spots, one in my rib and one near my spine. When I came back, it was spread across my ribs and how it started hitting my hips and started going up my spine. And in just a 4-month period. And all because of my ignorance. Yes. And because the doctor was like Santa Claus and he should have said that was metastasis. Yes. But that just goes to show how we need to get the information. Yes. You need to understand what you're talking about. And if you got a doctor that's smiling all the time, tell him to stop smiling and give it to me straight. Yeah. Give it to me straight. And so then I also had a spot on my lungs, but they weren't sure if it was cancerous or not. So he said to me, listen, I'm going to give you these antibiotics. Come back in a month. If that spot goes away, we'll know if it's cancerous or not. So as I left, I'm thinking to myself, now wait a minute. I got cancer. You give me antibiotics? So I went home and I saw that commercial again for cancer treatments in America. Yes. And I called. Now don't get me wrong, Helen Graham did a good job for 10 years. They kept it going. You know, they kept my PSA down. But this was crunch time. Yes. This stuff began to spread like a wildfire. And it was time out for all the smiling. It was time out for all the, you know, candy conversation. Yes. You know, it's time to give it to me straight. Give it to me like they wanted on the streets. Yes. Just straight up. Sure. You know. And when I got the cancer treatment centers of America about a year and a half ago, my PSA was 646.
Whoa. He should have been dead.
646 means that the cancer was spreading extremely fast. Because that's what that number means, how much cancer is in the body. It was spreading extremely fast. It had spread to my ribs, my hips, my spine. I began to have pain in my spine. Yeah. My wife will tell you, my back began to hurt. So they said, listen, we're going to put you on chemotherapy and hormone therapy, and we're going to give you a high dose of radiation for that pain in the back. Well, my PSA after the 6 treatments of chemotherapy had went down to 3. And my hair fell out, but as my mom can attest to, my baby hair came back. And so he still wasn't satisfied. He wanted to get that PSA down to 0. Amen. So they put me on chemo pills, which I'm currently on,
Okay.
And my last blood test, my PSA went down to 0.9. My PSA has been 0 for 2 years. Has been 0 for 2 years. But God in His mercy and His grace touch those doctors.
Glory to God.
But I want to tell you, say something too that you need to understand along the way. Along the way, when you're dealing with this journey, you need some friends.
Oh, yes.
Now, I have some friends I don't hear from you.
Yes.
Once you get sick, some people get scared.
Yes.
They don't want to see you sick. They don't want to see you bald-headed and all
Yes.
sweet. I got a couple friends like that. But then I got some good friends.
Yes.
I tell you, one day I called Whitney,
Yes.
and a few months ago,
Yes.
and I didn't call for prayer.
Yeah.
I didn't call to talk about my condition. I just called to say, what's going on?
Yes.
The next thing you know, I was messed up.
Yes.
I had begun to cry. I was alone. I
Yes.
was hurting. And it's just something that came down on me that day.
Thank you, God.
I mean, I even had a good devotion that morning. But something that came down on me.
Yeah.
And I began to cry, tell Whitney my situation. My bladder had gotten so bad I couldn't leave the house just about. And Whitney began to pray.
Yes.
JL walked in the room, and you know what happened. They began to pray. And see, I don't have friends like Job's friends. See, Job's friends, the Bible says they were miserable coming. Right? They were miserable. Get yourself together, Job. What you do, sin? No, I had good friends. And they began to call on the name of the Lord. They began to yell and scream and shout in the name of the Lord. They began to sing and just encourage me. By the time I got off that phone, I felt like Superman. See, that's what we need to understand. When you got people around you going through cancer, friends going through cancer, you need to encourage them. You don't need to be a miserable counselor. You need to call them. You need to let them know. You know, you don't know what they're going through because it ain't easy to go through it. You have your times. And my wife will tell you, I'm an avid. I do my Bible studies. I do my devotions. I listen to my sermons. But there's something about when you're alone sometimes. Amen? Amen? When you're going through. You know, don't be no miserable comfort. Call somebody. Pray for them. And you don't know what they're doing. You don't know. You don't know. And I just thank the Lord for them. I thank the Lord for them. But I know this woman told me about Whitney long ago. I'm going to tell you the secret. She had a woman working in her office with cancer. The woman was so messed up, she didn't know she was going to make it. Cancer and a bad heart, right? She said to me one day in tears, Whitney wasn't in me. She said, that woman right there. She prayed. This is a Catholic woman. She said, that woman came to my hospital, prayed for me. She's my supervisor. She saved my job. She told me when I get back, my job will be here. And she came back. And she kept praying for that woman. She kept praying for her. And I'm going to tell you that story. When she told me that story about Whitney, it messed me up. Because we walk around here as Christians. We call ourselves Christians. When the last time we called somebody, heard, or went to see them in the hospital and encouraged them?
Glory to God.
She saved that woman's job, visited her. That woman didn't even basically say she's a Catholic. So she probably didn't even know the Lord. But she said, she in tears, how that woman prayed for her, cried with her,
Come on, God.
and saved her job. She didn't have to do it. She had to save her job. She could have got rid of it. In fact, Whitney was doing her job and her job. Just to save her job. So I don't know why I called her that day, but I know when I called her, she got on that phone
Yeah.
and prayed for me, her and Jonelle. I never even told my wife about it. I was messed up that day.
Yes.
I was messed up. I don't know what it was, but she prayed.
Yes.
See, I don't have miserable comfort. I don't have miserable comfort.
He doesn't have miserable, he does not have miserable comforters.
Then I got a lovely wife.
When we, Miss Vista,
She was standing by me. She stood by me, man, I tell you. She stands by me and she puts up with me. And I don't know how sometimes, but she does. But let me tell you something. I got a secret weapon. It's called a mother.
Yeah.
I got a mother, 86 years old, who rode down here yesterday to be with her baby. But let me tell you, some months ago, she was on the hospital bed.
Come on.
And doctors told her she had cancer. She had 3 spots on the tongue, both sides of her neck. And they took the tumors out of her tongue. And they told her that if they didn't do some treatment, she had about maybe 3 weeks. And my mama said, 86 years old, 10 children. I've lived a good life. She's I lived a good life. But I went over and we laid and cried on that bed that day. I'll never forget it. And I said, Mama, you can handle it. You can do it. She went through that chemotherapy. She had diabetes. They had to cut her dose because of her age and her diabetes. They didn't know if it was going to work. The diabetes would act up after she did the treatment, to prednisone, and then she had to give herself the insulin. She was struggling with that insulin, boy, that needle. She was like, wait a minute. I took the pills, but this needle looks different. But let me tell you, after her treatments, her last visit, she's cancer-free.
oh, I'm telling you, God is the bomb. Look at her in that red. Mom and Vista, I just want you to come on and walk up here just for a picture. I'm not going to make you talk. Come on up here, Mom. Come on up here, Mom. Come on, Vista. Come on up here.
Not only that,
Come on up here.
her
Come on,
diabetes hasn't
Pastor.
showed up.
Come on, Doc.
Her diabetes hasn't showed up.
Her diabetes has not shown up since she got the report from the Kings. Come on up here, Dr. Agar. Some of you standing trying to figure out what's going to happen with my situation. You're going to pray and believe God. God's already healed you according to His word. You're going to get you some friends that are not negative comforters. And you're going to stand in agreement and you are healed in Jesus' name. Come on and celebrate Mr. Guyton, his mom, and his wife. And they also have three or 4 children as well. So he had said when we was at his house, he didn't know if he was going to be here for his daughter's graduation. Well, he's going to be here for her graduation, his son's graduation, his son's grandchildren, his daughter's grandchildren. He's going to be here till God calls him home. Celebrate Jesus! We just want to celebrate all of them before Dr. Agar comes. Just give him a hug. And now she has nothing. Diabetes gone, cancer gone, everything that's not like God is what? Gone. And we celebrate God. Give each 3 of them a y'all come on over and get a picture with Mr. Reynold. Amen. You guys come on and run over and get a picture. Wow. Praise the Lord. Praise God. Wonderful Holy Spirit. Wow. Put your hands together for Jesus this morning. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Pastor Dave, and I'm telling you, look at what God has done this morning thus far, and that He will bring us the best doctor, I'm going to say the best doctor in the world, to our house to look at God. Dr. Agar could be anywhere in the nation, just flew in from somewhere else inside of the country. He could be wherever, but God always gives us His choicest servants, and we're so grateful. Thank God for Pastor Dave this morning.
It wasn't just that small. You usually that small. I don't know if it's going to go there or not. But we'll see. Amen. Can you give the Lord a good praise right now here? We overcome by the blood and the testimony. What a testimony. Even neighbor, everything has to bow to the name of Jesus. Everything, including cancer, diabetes, anything you can name. There is no other name under heaven by which we can be saved. He's a healer, still healing, still delivering, still healing. So today I just celebrate the Lord today. I pray you are encouraged. I pray you take these testimonies to your job. Take them to your neighbors. Take them to your family members. Take them to anybody on your block. They can hear that God is still healing. He is still saving you today. Amen. Wow. I want to let this young man come up, and I call him young man because after Deacon Russell said 143, everybody I know is young. Everybody I know is young now. But this is Dr. Agar. Amen. He's a leader, a doctor. He's a mentor, he's a teacher. You are an incredible community leader. I thank God for your life and for your wisdom. And you're a better man of God than all of that. So I thank God for your love and example that you are. Thank you, Dr. Agar, for being here today.
What a powerful testimony. What a powerful ministry. Nothing that could be as important than when you hear it.
Yes.
From somebody who has experienced it.
There you go.
And also it's a testament that I always tell my patient, all healing comes from God. God has given us the wisdom that we are able to find things or we are able to treat diseases. But all, just be reminded, my sister, all healing comes from God. You know, I was blessed this morning. Just as the word says, the song says, you are alone in my heart's desire. You really listen to the words of that song? And I hope that it has a transforming influence in our minds. Because you know, a lot of us, we could come to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, we pay our tithes, we pay, but if your heart is not transformed by that word. And even as I looked at it, and I'm sure every time you come, you see the word. Through the word. And it just reminded me, the Bible says, thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. So again, I know you have leadership here that is interested in your behalf. I was way out in government. I had a team there doing some medical relief and Pastor called and he left a voicemail on my cell, and we were in an area that we couldn't get reception. So it's not until I got back I realized that he had called and left 2 or 3 or even probably 5 messages. So I'm telling myself, he really wants me to come. As a matter of fact, I had another appointment this morning, but because of who he is, I'm really happy to be part of this ministry to share with you
just further insight and how important it is. Our brother here just tell you how practical it is. This is not something that you read about. This is about you. And that's what makes it important. When I'm faced with the reality of sharing with a patient, sometimes I don't even like to use the word. There was one patient I saw last week, and I have to tell him, look, according to what this results show, this is probably your last Thanksgiving. I don't like to say that because God is the one who I still give hope and I still trust in Him, and more things are wrought through prayer than this will ever do. That's why I tell the sister for praying. A lot of times we tend to forget that. But the reality is that we need to play our part. Even though, as the Bible tells us, that God wishes above all things that we prosper and be healthy, even as your soul prosper. I remember we were at that meeting at Seeds of Greatness when the pastor from Washington told us that there was this guy. It was a cold day and he was outside trying to get his cigarette in. So he told him, he said, no, go inside and smoke. You don't have to come outside and smoke, because a lot of us look at the temple as the church, but this is the temple. And we forget that. So I hope that the information that is shared, that we really take it and share it with our family. So I'm going to make a few comments. It's Big Sunday, and breast cancer, which 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. And look how many women that are here this morning. So 1 in 8, that's what the statistics show. But the key is early detection. We are living in a world of sin. And we know that Satan is angry, especially when you're in ministry. He does not want to see you smile and be happy and sharing. As the Pastor Mills spoke about this morning, even when you come to worship, how your body should be in health. You could jump, you could dance, you could sing, in a spirit of praise. But when there's stress on your mind, whether that stress is infected by diseases, it affects your worship. And we should always be worshiping with a thankful heart. But God has given us a privilege, because a lot of the diseases that we face has to do with our lifestyle. One preacher said, there are times that we dig our graves with our teeth. So we need to really pay attention as we share information. So I'm going to share some stuff about breast cancer. I think a lot of it was said this morning in terms of screening, but I'm going to share with you some of the risk factors of breast cancer. And also I'm going to share with you some pathology. There's about 4 types of breast cancer. So a lot of us only look for a lump. So if we see a lump, we think that we have something. But it can go beyond a lump. If you see that the outside of your breast, the skin of your breast, looks like an orange skin, we call it pear the orange, you would not feel any particular lump, but that could be a sign of breast cancer. If you have a discharge from the nipple, that's not milky, but just what we call serous discharge, it could be a sign of breast cancer. Not every lump in your breast means breast cancer, but you said the word that, in terms of with your wife, when there's something abnormal, a lot of times statistics might say because of your age, this is a cyst. But sometimes it's not a cyst. One of the beautiful things about Delaware, where we live, we have the privilege of getting second opinion. I endorse that. So we are living near Fox Chase Cancer Center. We are near Cancer Treatments of America, the center at University of Penn, even Johns Hopkins. These are places you can get second opinion. And never look for second opinion in Delaware, because as physicians, we all know each other. So we sit and have it, we have things together. So if the person that I know said that you have that, I might go along with him, not to be controversial. So anytime you get in a second opinion, get it outside of Delaware. We're a very small state. But one thing that you also mentioned this morning, so we know that we usually screen for breast cancer at age 40. And even, they're looking at statistics and number needed to treat. So age 40 is when we really treat. But we have had people who have had breast cancer at age 29, at age 28. As a matter of fact, there is right now one of my patients, his daughter, she is in law school in Pittsburgh. at the top of her class. She's the #1 student in that law school. He actually called her his prize daughter. He has 2 daughters. I'm saying, why are you saying, does that mean the other one is not important? No, but he said she's just his prize daughter. And right now, she has to drop out of law school. She has stage 4 breast cancer, which is really terrible. 29 years of age. All right? So the key is, don't wait until you're 40. It is important that you do breast self-exam. There is nobody that would know you like you. And if you see a difference, get it checked out. If the person you go to get it checked out tell you something different, get a second opinion. All right? So there are some people who have a genetic predisposition to breast cancer. And there's a specific gene called a BCRA gene. And typically the way you follow that, if you have a first-degree relative, so in terms of mom, sister, that has breast cancer, and you have like an aunt that has ovarian cancer, anytime you have that combination of breast cancer and ovarian cancer, it's a very strong suggestion that you might have that BCRA gene. If you have that gene, I have about 4 people in my practice with that gene. If you have that gene, then at the age of around 20, 21, you have to, if the gene is positive, you must prophylactic take the breast off. Because there's a 100% chance that you will get breast cancer. It's a terrible thing, but that's the reality of what we live in. In the prime of your life, and you think how important that is for your mate and everything, and what you must do to sustain your life. So the other risk factors are for breast cancer. If you have early menarche, so typically the average age for young girls seeing their menstrual cycle is at age 12. Some people can get it at 10. But because of some of the foods that we eat, because the exposure to estrogen, somebody mentioned that estrogen is like the fertilizer, just like in male, the fertilizer is testosterone. So this is similar pattern. So if you have exposure to estrogen at an early age, because that's what happens when you have what we call menarche, early periods. It means that your body is now exposed to estrogen for an early age. And the other factor to that, if you also have a late menopause, the average age for menopause should be 52. So if you are in your 56, like one of my sisters, she's 56 and still having a cycle. So if you are in over 52 and going into 56, it's a risk factor. So it means that you have to be very, very conscious of that and make sure you have close follow-up. So early menarche and late menopause means that the length of time that you're exposed to estrogen puts you at risk for breast cancer. That is one of the reasons why when people used to go into menopause and have these hot flashes, one of the first things we used to do is to give estrogen so that we could help to relieve hot flashes. There was a time also that we think that giving estrogen will also decrease your chance of developing cardiovascular disease, until we found out that when we started that, there was an increase in breast cancer. Not only breast cancer, but estrogen. Be very, very, very cautious if your doctor insists that you take estrogen to relieve some of your hot flashes, because there's also a very, very high rate of blood clots. All right, so be cautious of that. So that's one of the risk factors. So again, family history, exposure to estrogen, obesity is also a risk factor for breast cancer. If you have breast cancer if you have a family member and their breast cancer is on both breasts, again, very, very, very strong history that a sibling might also develop breast cancer. So you take these into consideration and make sure that you have yourself checked out. Again, it was emphasized that if with any cancer, whether it's breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, even if we have the designated time that people should have their evaluation, if a family member have cancer, what you have to do, if it's before that day, you calculate 10 years earlier to have your screening. Same thing with colon cancer. I have a patient now where his son has to start screening for colon cancer at age 12 because he had colon cancer at age 22.
Wow.
So there are some outside of the norm that you must be aware of. And that's why it's good to go talk with your doctor. And just don't go and be a passive person.
Yeah.
You know, do your research and don't just follow Dr. Google, but do your research and get answers. And if you are not satisfied, get a second opinion.
Yeah.
That's really the key for longevity. Because what cancer is, let me just back up a little bit. Cancer is very, very normal cells that lose the ability to stop dividing. When a sperm and an egg come together, it forms one cell. And that cell divided into 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, 32, and 64, until there is enough cells in the body. It's called a morula. When there's enough cells in the body, nature, God designed it that those cells start to differentiate, and that's what gives us eyes and nose and heart and lungs and intestine. It differentiates. Now, whenever a cell matures and it touches another cell, it should stop dividing. But if the genetic information to advise that cell to stop dividing is hampered either by some of the what we call carcinogens. So there are things in the environment, in the genetics that has been changed, and when these carcinogens now misrepresent the instruction that was given to the cell by the gene to determine how the cell is formed and when it should stop, that is disrupted, so the cell now becomes immortal. So what happened? It continues to produce more cells, but there's no information to tell it to stop, so it forms a mass. And it's this mass that now invades blood vessel, invades our organ system. When we talk about metastasis, so what happened with this cell that now becomes immortal, piece of that cell can break away. When it gets in the bloodstream, it goes through the liver, through different places, through the bone marrow. So that piece of cell, when they get drowned in the very small blood vessel, they say, hey, I'm going to continue the process. So that's what metastasis is. And that's how people succumb to cancer. So it's really important that you look at the milestone for each. While we are concentrating on breast cancer now, but I'm going to try to share information on colon cancer, which our brother mentioned, prostate cancer, because these are the things that affect every single one of us. Even as physicians, we are not immune. Just in the past 6 months, we have lost 3 physicians, one to brain cancer, another one to colon cancer, another one to a lymphoma. So we are all, liable for all these different arrangements. So the key is, so we are saying that if you're a woman, you should start that screening at age 40. But even before that, like you said, do your self-breast exam. And the best time to do it when you are having your menstrual cycle is 2 weeks after your cycle, because during the time of your cycle, the breast becomes even more dense. So if you do, so sometimes you might feel things that are abnormal, but it might just be because of the denseness of the breast. Okay? And again, for those of you, information, that's why really good information was shared here today. So you guys don't let those information go just one in there, come in one ear and go out the next. So when the breast is dense and the regular mammogram does not cover it, insist that you get the 3D, because these things are available. So insist that you get it so that it could be more specific. And again, brother, you could not really emphasize it more than you did this morning. If it says that it's abnormal, something is possibly wrong, get a second opinion. All right, so I think the information that was shared this morning was very, very valuable. So again, and the key is always early detection, because you want it to be contained in the capsule, whether it's colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer. When it's contained, it's localized. That's why if a person gets a biopsy and it came back positive, what they do, they take it out, because the earlier they take it out, it's better. But they also look at the lymph node where it's the first place of spread. They look for what is called a sentinel node to make sure there is no cancer in it. Your prognosis is better, the treatment is better, and less side effect. So again, be very, very, just be concerned about your health. And just recognizing that God has given you this body to praise Him and to share the good news of salvation. All right. So just a quick, and then I'll entertain some questions because I can talk about breast cancer and colon cancer all the time. Colon cancer is another thing that we have been, hit with, and it's something again that could be cured if you pick it up early. The brother said that he was getting his tests that would come, and these are really old times now. They're newer studies that we can do. But every time it comes in the mail, he would just brush it aside. A lot of times, some of us, we think that if our parents are in the 80s and they never had colon cancer, that one lady told me, doctor, why if my both parents are in the 80s and they never had colon cancer, what made you think? If I have their genes, if you're saying that we all are the product of our parents, if I have their genes and they didn't have it, what made you think that I didn't have it? One day she went to Christiana Hospital. And she was seen in the emergency room because she was having what we call intractable nausea vomiting. Because if things can't go through, it's going to come back up. Yeah. So they did a CAT scan of her abdomen. As a matter of fact, they actually initially thought it was a viral syndrome and just sent her home. She went back about a week later, same problem. So this time they decided to do a CAT scan. They did a CAT scan of her abdomen. Both parents in their 80s healthy, no medical problem. They did a CAT scan of the abdomen and saw a mass in her abdomen. So I admitted her under my service. And whenever you see a mass in the body, the next step is looking for mets. So we did a CAT scan of the chest, the abdomen, and pelvis. We found a mass in her lungs also. So we were thinking this was probably colon cancer that spread to the lungs or lung cancer that spread to the colon. It was not. It was two separate cancers. We don't know. So don't try going out there guessing and let people tell you all kind of stuff. We don't know. And she was such a private person. She did not want me to tell her husband that she had this. So when I walk in the room, I'm remembering the exact room that she was in. So when I got the result, I walked in the room, she said, Dr. Agar, if it's cancer, don't tell me. And I stopped. I did not say anything. And then she started crying. Because she realized that if it was negative, I would be running to her and hugging her, but I didn't say anything. She started crying. She did not leave the hospital. She died 1 week later. So you don't want to wait early detection. So for colon cancer, we are suggesting that at age 50, you should get a colonoscopy. It is the gold standard. For those of you who don't want to do colonoscopy, you probably see advertised on the television about the Cologuard. The Cologuard is another option, especially if you have risk factors. What it is, it looks at the genetics of your stool and it can determine if you have, predisposition for cancer. But what happens if you have a family history again, as was said before, you normally do 10 years earlier. Now, what they colonoscopy, a lot of people actually also, because they're afraid of the colonoscopy, they do something called a virtual colonoscopy, which is like a CAT scan. CAT scan of your abdomen can also miss cancer. Because the reason why that we screen to see there's what we call a polyp. A polyp is a little stalk that is in the cancer, that is in the colon. So we have the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon. Within the colon, if there is a polyp, you clip it. There's two types of polyps. One is called a hyperplastic polyp. And this hyperplastic polyp, you will live 143 years and you will not become a cancer. When it's a hyperplastic polyp. I like the numbers. I really like the numbers. All right. But you will live, and it doesn't become cancer. It's a hyperplastic polyp. A lot of us still say, even though it's a hyperplastic polyp, typically, if there's no polyp, we recommend that you have that study done every 10 years of colonoscopy. But when there's a hyperplastic polyp, even though there's no solution, we don't know if things are going to change. So we normally still recommend that within 7 years, you repeat a colonoscopy. If that polyp is an adenoma, you hear the doctor use the word adenoma. If it's not hyperplastic, everything else be concerned. When it's an adenoma, you look at the size of that polyp. If the polyp is a large size, you hear them talking about 1 centimeter or more, then the doctors, and they're very good, they will either tell you, you come back in 6 months, or you come back in a year, or you come back in 3 years, or 5 years. You never go beyond 5 years. It all depends on the size. And there's some that are what we call villous adenoma, some that are a little more aggressive than others. So again, that's the thing, and that's why you should have an intimate relationship with your primary care doctor, so that you follow up. The system is in place because of technology, where a lot of the GI doctors, they have a way of reminding you. But even when your schedule is 5 years, if you see any change in your stool, despite us saying 5 years, if you notice that your stool now becomes pencil thin, that could be a bad sign. You always look for blood in your stool. So whether the doctor said 5 years, that's his preliminary result, because no test is 100%. You still take care of your body. Paul tells us that we should care for our body. So you take care of your body. If you see any change, call your private doctor and discuss with him. And if he doesn't give you an answer, I really like your answer this morning. Go for a second opinion. Yeah, the insurance is going to pay for it. If you don't have any insurance, come and let me know. I'm going to help you work it out. Okay? But you've got to care for yourself. There's nobody that can care for you like you.
That's right.
All right. Nothing. Sometimes when you think that you even know your spouse or your family or so, everyone's story is different. Yeah. And God knows your story, so you take it to Him. Yeah. So again, you follow up closely and have these monitored. The same thing with, so again, you get your colonoscopy, and prostate cancer, very important in males. Typically, you should have a PSA and a digital rectal exam screening, the both of them, because the PSA alone is not satisfactory. PSA is a very sensitive test, but it's not specific. Normal value should be less than 4. But I have had patients who have PSA of 0.8 and have prostate cancer. Or you could have a PSA of 10 and not have prostate cancer. That's why we use the family history. There was one of my patients, he was one of 5 brothers, and his father died from prostate cancer. He was the youngest. 4th of his brother had prostate cancer. So because of that now, his PSA was 0.8. And he came to my office when I was in Fort Road, and I said, hey, if it was me, I think I'd just get a biopsy. And I was able to convince the urologist to get a biopsy. The biopsy came back positive. It means that we have picked up his cancer about 5 years before it would have showed up. The earlier the detection is, the better. Because when you do have a diagnosis of prostate cancer, there is something that they do call the Gleason score. And when they give you that Gleason score, it tells you how aggressive that prostate cancer is. When the gentleman said that he was 46 years old and diagnosed with prostate cancer, that is a sign of a very aggressive cancer, because typically prostate cancer is very slow growing, to the point where if you get to age 75, we actually don't really push about getting PSA done again, because if you develop prostate cancer after age 75, you are more likely to die with it rather than from it. Wow. But when you get it at an earlier age, all right, at an earlier age, it is more aggressive, you're more likely to succumb to it. Even though it's stage 3, but again, the fact that he has so many recurrences to the point where it's spread to the bone, it has progressed very aggressively. And thank God there's a lot of treatment that we can have, and also through the power of prayer. Through the power of prayer, don't ever forget that. But again, that's what's important, to keep us healthy, keep us praising God with our whole heart, our whole mind, and our whole spirit, as the Bible advises us to do. So I'm going to entertain some questions, because I can tell you I can talk all day, but but I'm glad that the invitation, I was really blessed tonight by the Spirit. So good questions, and we can touch on any questions.
First of all, thank you so much, sir. Just a tremendous blessing, and we thank God for you. I would like you to share how important, like working out, getting a workout plan is to your health as it pertains to
your overall health, whether it be breast cancer, prostate, whatever. It's a very powerful question, something that we take for granted. To the point where even when my patients, they're retired, I always tell them, don't let them do your recliner. A body motion stays in motion, so every cancer, even though we're dealing with cancer today, you guys probably heard me the last time that I spoke here. When you think about cancer, every year approximately 500,000 people die from all the cancers combined. So cancers, it creates a type of fear. You go to the doctor and tell you that the PSA is whatever, you now start thinking, the next question they normally ask is, doctor, how long do I have? Every time that's the next question. But when you put it in perspective, especially in terms of physical activity, every year over 1 million people die from heart disease. Which is a combination of high blood pressure, diabetes, and all this, cholesterol. So you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is high or your blood sugar is high, there's no sense of urgency. Cancer creates a sense of urgency. It puts it in perspective. But as a brother rightly mentioned, we would not do a good job if we don't mention how important exercise is today. So not only does it help with cardiovascular disease because we know that it increases your HDL, it acts like a rotor-rooter, cleans the blood vessels, gives you longevity. All the studies show that if you exercise regularly, even a simple thing as walking, if you walk half an hour a day, 3 times a week, you're going to add 2.5 years to your life just by doing that. If you take that up to 5 times a week, you're going to add 4.9 years, almost 5 years. British studies say if you do an hour a little more aggressive, you're going to add 15 years to your life. So that 143 goes up to what? 158? So you add to your life. So don't take it for granted. It also helps because it helps with the confusion of the brain. But it gives you something, even that sense of positive thinking. Yeah. Because a lot of times you sit there and you watch all the crap on the news and you start internalizing a lot of these things. When you go there, you have positive attitude, positive thinking. And as you go in prayers, you pray because the Christian life is a lifestyle. It's not just every Sunday that you come here. And when you do that, it helps to fight cancer, it helps to fight obesity, it helps to fight, depression, it helps to fight cardiovascular disease just from activity. So my brother, I think it's inspiration that makes you show that how important it is that we take some time off our busy lifestyle, exercise. Okay?
I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was very enlightening. I'm 53, and I got the kit in the bag, in the mail, and I sent the school back. Is that sufficient, or should I get a colonoscopy?
So really, like I said, the gold standard is the colonoscopy. We only suggest the other ones if people are so fearful. And let me tell you something about colonoscopy. Long ago, let's say 20 years ago, we used to do sigmoidoscopy and colonoscopy, and there was one complication that people used to have. It's called a perforation, because it was going in blindly. They go through the rectum. Some doctors will do it in their office, and if they feel an obstruction, they try to get around it and they perforate the gut. We are not seeing that now because it's so well navigated. You could actually see, so the doctor is seeing exactly where he goes. So now, like I said, the gold standard is a colonoscopy. When you do the virtual colonoscopy, which is a CT scan, it can miss the very flat polyps. It does not, the CAT scan does not pick it up. Again, and even then, you still have to do the prep, because if they find something, you still have to go and do the colonoscopy. Excuse me. So that colonoscopy is really key to detection.
Just a quick question on, you mentioned primary doctors. How would you recommend going about finding a primary doctor if your doctor is part of a medical practice that keeps changing so you don't see the same person all the time?
Certainly, right now, the direction that medicine is going in this country, a lot of us are becoming frustrated with it. This is something that you have to approach through prayer and recommendation from somebody that you know, because the way some of us got into medicine, you know, because it was a passion, we love people, some of it is a calling, just as how your past is called spiritually. But what we see now, for a lot of people, it has become a job. Right now, what Christianity is doing, and a lot of places are doing, they're trying to buy up all the private practice. And so even the doctors who are working in this practice, they are now at a point where a lot of them, they're frustrated.
Yeah.
So it's 8 to 4 job. You know, so getting that extra call at 4:30, my time is over, see you another time.
Wow.
So that's what we're getting into with medicine. And I'm not sure I have the answer, but in Delaware, over the past year, we have had more than 30 primary physicians who has just called it quits.
Wow.
And more, some of you might know some of your primary doctors that are going into what we call concierge medicine,
Yeah.
in which you pay a retainer fee of $2,000 or $1,800. And if the practice has about 5,000 patients, they just bring it down to like between 300 to 400 patients. So that retainer fee kind of covers the amount of money that they would have. You have access to their cell phones, they come see you in the hospital. But you know, that is a system that a lot of us don't endorse, because for me, for the concept of which I practice medicine, medicine for me is a mission. That's why I go all over the world. I just came back from Dominica, and every day I'm in touch with the Dominican Prime Minister's office. Even last night he called, trying to help them, because it's a mission. So we don't see people because of their ability to pay. So even if I have some very influential patients in my practice, a lot of the professors from the University of Delaware, a lot of really influential people. But even when I see them versus the person who's on drugs or who, you know, God has always impressed within my heart that I must see them the same way that I see others. So that's the key. And so what we're seeing now, that especially what's happening with this administration, you know, that it's deteriorating. So you probably have to go on your knees and ask God to lead you to something.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Agar. Would you please explain a little further the relationship between cancer and fat cells and the impact on the body, and how being obese impacts your health? And also about the markers, like if you have primary parents with cancer, and what age should children be screened?
Okay, so fat cells, most of the people who are obese, they have an increased risk of diabetes, they have an increased risk of heart disease, they have an increased risk of cancer, a lot of cancer, based on the fact that the fat cells in the body, not only do they make it insulin resistant, but they also create a sense of inflammation. And these are the things that promote abnormality and change anything that can change the genetic information of the cell. All right, a fat cell does that. All right, so again, getting rid of those fat cells in whatever way you can do. But God, there's nothing too hard for God.
All right.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing too hard for Him. So even when mentally you tell yourself, I've tried, and it's a yo-yo, and I've tried, and you know, take it to God. And God can help you get rid of those fat cells. But it's a very important risk factor. And a lot of times you don't hear it mentioned. I'm glad that you brought that up. It's a very, almost every single cancer, there is some relation to fat cells and the adipose tissue and the inflammation that it can cause. Same thing with diabetes, because most people who are obese has what we call insulin resistance. That same genetic insulin resistance can also predispose into cancer. in terms of some of the markers, I'm not sure if I get the question right, but there's certain genetic markers, like there are people who have like colon cancer who have what we call a familial polyposis, and those are the people that probably that needs to really be screened. So you really need to know your family history, that you need to dig deeper into it. So if you have heard that you had an aunt or your uncle, really that close relative that have had colon cancer in their 30s or in their 40s, or even in their 20s, you see people in their 20s, that's when we need to have that early detection, because again, those, if they do a colonoscopy and see multiple polyps, all right, they don't even kill those polyps, you have to have the colon out. So those are genetic markers. Same way for breast cancer and for prostate cancer. Some people just genetically are predisposed to early cancer. When that happens, again, Ellie Graham Center is good, but you really go to the big centers.
Yes.
What I realized, and one of my wife's cousins, just had prostate cancer, again, very high Gleason score. So I call up one of my friends who is in Washington at Johns Hopkins, who knows the person who is the head of prostate cancer throughout the United States. And I spoke to him personally, because I want the best for my family and my friends. So what he shared something with me that I never thought about. Now, the management of cancer involves either surgery, it involves either radiation or chemotherapy. So if you go and you talk to the surgeon is going to want to cut it out. If you go talk to the radiation therapist, he's going to tell you radiation is the best treatment. If you go talk to the oncologist, he's going to tell you the best treatment is chemotherapy. So what Johns Hopkins has done, and a lot of the cancer treatment centers of America, they bring everybody to the table. So again, this is where second and third opinion. Let me say, all the oncologists in Delaware know them very well. A lot of them, they're my patients. But as much as I know them, there is a sense of urgency that you need to put things together. Like the brother says, give antibiotics and come back in a month. No, you don't do that. Oh, I can't sleep because when you telling me that I'm faced with my lifeline ahead of me, I'm going to go home and try to sleep peaceful and take some antibiotics, and it's possible that it's cancer. So again, getting second opinion, third opinion, even fourth opinion, get it, and hopefully that was it.
Hi, I come from a very strong background of cancer in my family. I lost my mother at 61 to breast cancer. Hers went breast, lung, and brain. My sister was 57 and hers went breast and bone. I've been genetically tested and my genetics came back okay. But I would like to know, what does that say for my daughters and my son? And actually, I just a week ago lost my mother's youngest brother, passed away from bladder cancer. So there's a strong history there. They have me on a regimen now where I have to get a mammogram the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year I do a MRI. And so far so good, but you mentioned family history. Years ago, people didn't say what they died of. Everything was natural causes. So until my mother came up with cancer, we knew of no history. But obviously there's something there because it's trickling down, But I would like to know what else I can do to stay on top of it, and also I can tell my daughters to do this properly.
So you do the right thing, and again, self-breast exam, there's still value to that. So even when the doctors say you're okay for another 6 months, you continue to stay on top of it. Any change that you have, whether it's stain or change in the nature of the skin on your breast, because like I said, there's 4 different types. Some are more invasive than the others. There's one that is called invasive ductal, which is cancer in the mammary glands and the ducts that really produces the milk. And sometimes when the cancer is there, all it does is retracts the nipple. So you might not see any problem, but you might just see the nipple retraction. And that could be a sign of deep inside cancer that the mammogram could miss MRI. So any little change, be concerned about it. But again, in terms of your daughter, and even your daughter's daughter, they need to still stay because some of these can skip generations. You know, so it's all depending on the genetic foresight on the gene, you know, that whether, you know, you might have more of your father's gene in that area that deals with breast, and you might not have, so you might be able to skip generation. But again, just stay on top of it and just share that information. And that's why this program is so important, because many of us would not have heard this powerful testimony from the brother if we didn't come to this meeting today. So again, share it with your neighbors, bring them and let them know when you have a situation like this. These are not cheap. You know, people pay and go all over the country to hear information like this. And your pastor and your sister pastor also has saw the need that you get that information. There's no greater love than a shepherd caring for his That's why I have to come today.
Dr. Agar, you were talking about going outside of Delaware for second opinions. And I just want to share from my experience from my late wife's battle with cancer. I think it is so important that when you seek out a facility, it's a place that does not just treat based on the last patient, but treat you based on your condition. And what I found is that I'm so glad I found Cancer Treatment Center of America. Unfortunately, it was too late. But I will never, just me, this is me, I'm not ever going to a place for cancer that just treats based on what their experience has been with the previous patient. I need a place that does experimental stuff, that does research, that tries to find out how your cancer, because every cancer is different, how your cancer can be treated. That's just so important.
Yeah, and you're right, you always right, like an independent authority.
Yes.
You know, so that means when I'm doing second opinion, I like to even hold the opinion that the previous person said. Let them form their own new opinion, because people go on what, you know, so again, very, very, very good point.
I just wanted to ask Dr. Agar, can you say something about
How sugar in relationship to cancer, how we take in so much sugar here in our nation, and also our food or our diet that can help us operate in a better place. Anything that's specific that you want to say to that?
Do we have a drawing board? Something that I can draw, illustrate, because very, very important. But very, and that's a very important point in terms of sugar or carbohydrates, and especially high fructose corn syrup.
yes,
So in the 1970s, there was a war on fat. And the key was to take fat out of our diet. And the sugar industry saw it as an opportunity to introduce high fructose corn syrup. That's when America started seeing obesity. All right? That's when there was an increase in diabetes. High fructose corn syrup is one of the worst sweeteners that you could have. It's very cheap, although fructose comes from its fruit. But what has happened, it's a man-made molecule. It makes soda taste good, the candies and the cookies taste good, but it's deadly. Not only have we seen an increase in obesity and increase in diabetes, but we are seeing, go to your doctor when they're doing their blood work, especially the liver function test. A lot of you are being told that you have fatty liver. It's a very, very common, and we used to see fatty liver in older people who are obese, but we're seeing people who have normal BMI having fatty liver. Because when you take in high fructose corn syrup, because it's a foreign entity in your body, the body doesn't know what to do with it. So what it does, it shunts it to the liver. and you develop fat in your liver. It's one of the causes of cirrhosis. So there are people who have had, you have the easel or something? There are people who have had what we call, that can actually go on to develop something called NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. They have never touched alcohol, but they have cirrhosis and the complications that go with cirrhosis. So sugar is important. If you develop a mass in your body, anything that's over 1 centimeter, if we don't know the primary, we do something called a PET scan. And what the PET scan would do, the PET scan is looking from head to toe to see if there is any abnormality that suggests cancer. Not just a bone scan, but a PET scan. And the reason why the PET scan is able to pick up abnormal or metastatic disease, they use a lot of sugar. And that's why in diabetic it's a protocol that they're very high because it's the ratio of turnaround. So as these cells turn around quickly, what they do, they're using sugar. And that's why even there's some people who have changed their diet when they develop cancer and go to a more natural diet. They try to decrease the amount of processed food that they eat, and a lot of times it can slow down the process of cancer. All right? So again, as our sister rightly points out, how sugar plays a role. Where's my mic? So, yeah. All right. So there are 3 main food groups. There are carbohydrates. This is better.
I'm trying to get it
I
out.
know. Oh, good. So carbohydrates. This is anything sweet or starch. And then there's proteins. And then there's fat. Every single thing that you eat or drink must be converted to glucose. Glucose is the energy of the cell. It must be converted. If it's not, it goes out as waste. I'm going to show you the difference, and just in relationship to the point. For each gram of carbohydrates, you have 4 kilocalories. For each gram of proteins, you have 4 kilocalories. What gives fat a bad name is because it has a lot of calories. So each gram of fat, you have 9 kilocalories. Now, what life boils down to, and what we have in America because it's a land of plenty, if you take in 4,000 calories, but you only burn 2,000, which is the average that we burn, the brain needs glucose 24/7. So if you do that, then what happens, so the body will use up that 2,000 that you need, the rest is going to store as fat and as cholesterol in the lining of the blood vessel. This is the cholesterol that breaks away and causes heart attack and stroke. All right? So that's what it does. On the other hand, if you take in 2,000 calories, but because of exercise, because of your activity, you burn up that 2,000, and the body needs more calories to work. What it does, it takes fat cells in your body, because that was, the body thought, hey, I'm going to store it for when you need it. So it takes fat cells now to make glucose. If there's no more fat cells in your body, the body will take proteins, which is muscle, to make glucose. If there's no more muscle, you die from starvation. When you see in these countries where famine, and you see they're very cachectic, they've used all their fat, they've used all their muscle, they're in the process of dying from starvation. So, but there's another difference. Carbohydrates, it's a simple carbon chain. We're going to do some chemistry now. Simple carbon chain. There's no branches in carbohydrates. Glucose is a simple carbon chain. No branches. So glucose is a carbohydrate. So if you eat a meal with carbohydrates, which are the sugars especially, the sugars and the starches. The starches is a big thing too, which is, the bread, pasta, potato, rice, which is a lot of our main diet. This is the land of plenty. So when we eat a meal with that, it's very easy to convert to glucose. You just keep that here, and you have a spike in glucose. So after a carbohydrate meal, you have a spike in glucose in your body, and your body say, hey, normally the insulin drives it into your muscle, but it doesn't have the time to do it. So what it's going to do, it's going to store some as fat, the remainder that you didn't burn up, and as cholesterol in the lining of the blood vessel. On the other hand, proteins, they are complex molecules. There are lots of different branches. Same thing with fat. It's a complex molecules with a lot of different branches. So the process of converting proteins and fat to glucose is a gradual process. We say that foods in this group have what we call a low glycemic index. So what happened is, the process to convert to glucose is gradual. So people can control their blood sugar with diabetes, they can control their cholesterol if you eat more food in this group. So that's why the beans, the vegetables, fish, chicken, the turkey, eat more foods in this group, less in this group. You'll be surprised to know if you have that discipline, you're going to lose weight, your blood sugar get better, your cholesterol going to better, just from that simple process. But remember how bad these sugars are, especially when it's high fructose corn syrup. There is an article that CNN had done through Dr. Sanjay Gupta. High fructose corn syrup is toxic. They're realizing now that it's very, very toxic. But because of who we have in legislation, the governor of New York, they tried to make legislation as to decrease high fructose corn syrup in the diet. As a matter of fact, when the Obamas were in and they changed the school diet, they were expecting by 2012 to have a decrease in obesity in our children. They found it in 1 year after they instituted. But again, the powers that be say, you can't tell us what to eat. You're taking away our choices, even though it's good choices that you share. So that's why we have to know for ourselves. So if you could cut back the processed food, a lot of the processed food, that's what it's made of. I know a lot of us have our taste buds, and really a lot of it has to do also with moderation. But what happened in America, because we can afford it, so we eat excess of it. We live in a time where you supersize it, and then when it's tasty, you get seconds. If we can cut back from the table, that's why, like the preacher said, we dig our graves with our teeth. All right, and that's why the Bible tells us that he that striveth for mastery is temperate in all things. So if we can develop some temperance, a lot of times, a lot of the illnesses that are around us, the Bible tells us that you would be like a spring, forever, healing waters. And this can be a beacon of that type of light as your pastors help to promote health in this time. Thank you.